Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for Kentucky's Peer-to-Peer Learning Network webinar. This is our first of our quarterly webinars for year 3. So we're excited to kick off year 3. Since we have a bit of a smaller group today, I was going to see if we wanted to do some introductions. I'll begin and then I'll just kind of go through my screen and ask you to introduce yourself. Feel free to unmute yourself to introduce yourself, or if you'd rather just type in the chat box who you are, where you're from, kind of what programs you're working on, and then we'll get started. So I am Catherine Hines. I'm an Educational Services Assistant at the Kentucky Injury Prevention and Research Center. And under the OD2A funding grant that we have from the CDC, we work on our FindHelpNow platform, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But I work on the national expansion of that Linkage to Care program. So we'll go next. Michelle Stewart, if you'd like to go next.
Sure. Sorry, eating carrots. I'm Shelley Stewart, and I am from the Palm Beach County, Florida Opioid Overdose Data to Action Grant.
Excellent. Welcome. And then Danita Coulter.
Hi, I'm Danita Coulter. I am also with the Kentucky OD2A grant. I am an Educational Services Assistant Senior for FindHelpNow KY.org, primarily responsible for the onboarding of Kentucky providers and partnership building.
Excellent. Let's see. Next, I have Julie Kapp.
Hi, everyone. I'm Julie Kapp. I'm an associate professor at the University of Missouri in Columbia, Missouri, and I serve as the evaluator for Missouri's OD2A program.
Excellent. Welcome. Jan Dawson.
Good afternoon. My name is Jan Dawson. I'm the program administrator at the Mississippi Public Health Institute, and I work with the Department of Health in Mississippi on the OD2A project, doing prevention and training.
Excellent. And Angie Kirby.
My name is Angie Kirby. I'm the education and outreach coordinator for KIPRIC, and I work directly with Catherine and Danita on FindHelpNow.
Thanks, Angie. And then Stephanie.
Hello, my name is Stephanie Brajas. I work with the Palm Beach County OD2A. I am one of the epidemiologists and data abstractors for the surveillance here.
Great. Welcome, Stephanie. And then Whitney Van Arsdale.
Hi, everyone. My name is Whitney. I also work with Stephanie here in Palm Beach County, Florida, as part of the Innovative Overdose Surveillance Strategy 3 for the OD2A. My role in the program, I guess, is a biostatistician. Hi, everyone.
Great. Welcome. And Olivia Winters.
Hi, guys. I am the health education specialist here in Montana, working under the OD2A grant.
Great. Marco Mendez.
Good morning, everyone, or afternoon. Marco Mendez here. I'm an epidemiologist at Southern Nevada Health District, Clark County, Nevada, and I work primarily on surveillance for the OD2A project.
Excellent. Let's see, Caroline Newkirk.
Hi, I'm Caroline Newkirk, and I work with Jan at the Mississippi Public Health Institute, and I'm the evaluation specialist on the OD2A project here.
Awesome. All right, well, welcome everyone. I think I got everyone. Trying to flip through the screen, but I think I got everyone. So welcome again, and we'll go ahead and get started. So the agenda is pretty short and sweet today. We're going to be hearing a presentation on information security by Tyler Jennings, who also works here at the Kentucky Injury Prevention and Research Center. And so I'll do an introduction for him in a minute. Then we'll have plenty of time at the end for Q&A. I think that this topic leads itself to some interesting questions and conversations. So we'll save some time for that. And then at the end, I'll give you contact information for myself as well as for Tyler. And then also share a link for a post-webinar survey so that we can get your feedback, see what you like, what you didn't like about the webinar. And this helps inform future webinars. We like to hear what topics you all would like to hear about or learn about at upcoming webinars. But before we get into that, for those of you who are new or who may not have attended some of our webinars in the past, I'm going to give a little bit of background information on FindHelpNow and kind of what it is and what we're doing with the project. So back in 2016, the Kentucky Injury Prevention and Research Center, through another grant, a previous grant from the CDC, the Prevention for States grant, we started developing a linkage to care website, which was FindHelpNow and is findhelpnowky.org. And that website was designed with the intention to reduce the barrier related to the amount of time that it takes for an individual searching for substance use disorder treatment to find the treatment that they need. So what this website does is it provides near real-time availability for the treatment facilities that are listed on the website. And over the years, we've spent a lot of time enhancing the website as best we can to adjust to the stakeholders' needs and wants. We've tried to make the website as user-friendly as possible. And I think now we have over 600 treatment facilities listed that we've added over the last few years. And with the additional funding coming from the OD2A grant, we are now trying to expand what started out as a Kentucky website and is still run mostly by Danita. We're wanting to expand that to the national website, findhelpnow.org. So we're partnering with different jurisdictions, whether that be on the state level or a county level, to implement this treatment locator website in other jurisdictions. So we've been working with Tennessee, we've been working with Palm Beach County, Florida, a couple of counties in California. And so the funding that OD2A provides allows us to provide the website platform free of charge, at least for the first year. We also can provide technical assistance to those jurisdictions that want to implement this website platform. And then also to any other jurisdictions who currently are working on linkage to care programs. We've been working with other jurisdictions, providing technical assistance to them as they navigate implementing their own linkage to care website, even if it's not FindHelpNow. So I just wanted to give that information. And are there any questions about that before we get started? Okay. So I will introduce our guest speaker for today, Tyler Jennings. He's a research project manager for KIPRC, the Kentucky Injury Prevention and Research Center. His background is in IT project development and management with a focus on technical solutions to research problems. He is responsible for coordinating the development of National Website for Recovery Housing Information, Education, and Research. And Tyler also supports the FindHelpNow team as we work to expand our website services to new jurisdictions. So I will let Tyler get started.
All right, so I'm going to stay off video for the time being. You guys got a much better picture of me there in the previous slide. I guess the topic for today is information security. What we're going to do is talk a little bit in kind of broad strokes about what this means for the FindHelpNow platform, and just in general, some of the considerations when creating or offering a service, such as, you know, linkage to treatment applications in your particular areas. And specifically, we're going to talk a lot about HIPAA stuff, some agreements as well, and then, of course, you know, how user data is handled in these systems. Next slide, please. All right, so the first thing that's, I think, really important to keep in mind is transparency. When we were building FindHelpNow KY, we went through a lot of different iterations of how to address the issue of transparency, especially with vulnerable populations such as those with substance use disorder. So our first decision was to collect and track as little information as possible. We really just wanted to focus on what was required. And by required, I mean what's required to help us continue to improve and enhance the service that we offer, and also to gain insights into how individuals are using it, so that we can inform our partners at the academic level and at the state level on, you know, the trends in searches and, you know, identifying needs and gaps in service areas. So in that effect, what we did was we created a simple disclaimer and privacy and accessibility statements that let people know in very plain language. We avoid legalese wherever possible, that, you know, their information is not being stored on a database somewhere. It's not being shared with third parties, and it's not being sold in any capacity. We do also let them know that, you know, we do our best to maintain accessibility standards. We try to achieve compliance with something called the WCAG 2.0 AA compliance standard, which is really just kind of something that evolved from ADA or the ADA standards for, you know, web accessibility. It covers things like color contrasts, alt text on images. So like if you hover over an image, there needs to be some sort of alt text related to that that describes the image to people with visual impairments, and various things like that. And then in terms of the disclaimer, just kind of going back to this, one of the things that, you know, we do on our site is we list treatment providers and lots of information on them, but we can't warrant the quality or guarantee the quality of those treatment providers. So we wanted to be very careful in explaining that to individuals that visit the site. We do our best to make sure that the listing is accurate and up to date and of quality level that at least describes the services at that particular provider, so someone can make an informed decision. But we don't have a rating system either, and that was also an intentional decision, or a review system as well. And that was just one of the things that we often see with that kind of thing is the extremes, right? So you're going to get people that have really negative experiences going in and posting, and not very many, you know, moderate or you know, regular experiences that are just perfectly fine. I will say, you know, if you're going to work on a disclaimer, privacy or accessibility statements, or any other, you know, transparency type documents related to how you handle people's data, always check with a lawyer or legal expert. We're lucky at the University of Kentucky to have a pretty decent legal team that was very responsive to us. They have experts in technology, and specifically things like websites, who were able to review this and help us out. We also have someone on staff at KIPRIC who is a JD in her former life, who helped us craft a lot of the language and then simplify that. Again, keeping it simple is really important, so that people visiting the site can understand what you're trying to tell them and actually how you're using their information. All right, so we always get asked, are you HIPAA compliant? Do you collect PHI or PII? Short answer is no. No, we do not collect that data. Yes, we are HIPAA compliant. All of our servers and software is created on the Amazon AWS cloud system. That is a system that has signed a business associates agreement with the University of Kentucky, which is basically just a way to explain the policies and procedures around personal information on both entity side, as well as assign roles and responsibilities in that kind of that working relationship with the provider. There are lots of other host options, however. I'm happy to send, I think what we'll do is I'll send a little resource guide to you all after this, because whether you're adopting FindHelpNow, which you get all of this stuff kind of packaged in, or if you're building your own thing, it is really important to make sure you go with a host that will sign a BAA. I will say, even if you're not collecting PHI or PI like we do, or we do not do in FindHelpNow, it can really go a long way to creating clout with your partners and then individuals in the community who might be using this. So we'll send this nice little list of resources to you all. Next slide, please. All right, so one of the things we do to ensure our partners that we're doing our best to make sure that the service is operational at all times, that we address privacy and security concerns, and that we are maintaining our responsibilities and obligations, is we have everyone that we work with, all the other jurisdictional partners, to sign an MOU, memorandum of understanding, that outlines those roles. This is just a really important thing to do, I think, whenever you're building relationships within your jurisdiction, within your state. You don't have to have all treatment providers sign this, for example. They're essentially just agreeing to list their information in a database somewhere. But if you are partnering with other organizations in your state, having them sign an MOU that explains how the individual's information might be shared with them in aggregate form. So again, getting back to that issue of being able to fill in gaps and identify gaps in services, and also to explain to other entities out there how their search information or how the searches in that state are currently being conducted and what people are looking for. This is another thing too, if you're building a system that might link to other records, MOUs are obviously very important. And I'm sure all of you are really familiar with MOUs, so we'll move on. All right, so like I was saying, we're going to talk kind of broad strokes here. One of the, I think personally, I think one of the most helpful information security principles is the principle of least privilege. It's something I've kept in mind my entire career in IT, and is really one of the most basic ways to secure a system. What the principle of least privilege really just describes the fact that at any point, an individual using a system should only be accessing the information and functionality that's relevant to their specific need. So at any point, if someone's using the system, they should not be seeing other stuff that doesn't really relate to anything that they're, to stuff that they're not doing or not interested in. So we kind of translated this to 4 different tiers of security that were all based on need and access. We have the super administrative role, which is essentially KIPRIC staff. That's where we can basically customize, review anything in the system, and assist as well our jurisdictional partners, our providers, and facility staff with accessing their accounts, dealing with little problems in the system, and then of course hunting down and reporting bugs to our developers. So we also have a jurisdictional administrator that's similar to a KIPRIC administrator, except for a specific jurisdiction. So for example, we'll use Tennessee as an example, who we've been working really closely with lately. They'll have jurisdictional administrators that can log in, see dashboard overviews of all the providers in their system, all the houses, all the users in the system, as well as access reports and other information. And then also even do things like customize their specific landing pages that they have, their FAQ documents, their resources, that kind of thing. They can also be that point of contact for their statewide facilities as well, to help resolve any account issues or access problems. The next level is a provider manager. Provider managers are usually held by operators, directors, managers, and administrators at a facility. This role has access to add new facilities or edit or delete information on existing facilities. They can also invite new staff members to access particular houses, or sorry, facilities. I'm going to be confusing this quite a bit probably. I'm between two worlds with treatment and recovery right now. But the idea there is that these provider managers have that higher level role. They can kind of see everything happening under their purview. And then they can assign staff to specific roles in specific locations. That update manager, that's kind of the lowest level role at the moment. The update manager is given specific access to a specific facility, and they can actually go into that facility at any time. And they even have a separate interface that's simplified for their role to update the availability of beds or treatment slots at that particular facility, or multiple facilities that individual might be responsible for. But some of the things they can't do is like add new people, access some of these more detailed reports and information, delete information from houses, that kind of thing. And I will say also, one of the important things for HIPAA compliance is logs of what happens to the data in the system. So we try to expose some of that information. So like if someone sends a notification to a provider, for example, that's going to have a date and timestamp and a user stamp associated with it. If they make changes to a facility in the system, similar kind of thing, we're going to see a date and timestamp and username associated with that too. So if at any point information is compromised, it's changed, that kind of thing, we can always report back down the chain, who was responsible for making that change. And that's something that's very important to keep in mind whenever you're building a HIPAA compliant system. I will say also all roles receive notifications based on their assigned roles. So, starting at the top, super admin at KIPRIC, we can be notified on literally anything that happens. Jurisdictional administrators can be notified on stuff that happens to facilities within their jurisdiction, provider managers, facilities under their purview, and then update managers, all the facilities to which they've been assigned. And that just kind of helps us keep the information flow very specific as well, so we're not overwhelming everyone all of the time. Okay, next slide. All right, so we're going to transition finally into, I guess, the world I've been in, really kind of ingrained in for the past year and a half now, recovery housing. So we wanted to take some of the tenets that we learned in the development of FindHelpNow and apply that to, the similar issue of finding housing to continue your recovery after you've completed a treatment program. So initially we partnered with the Fletcher Group, which is a nonprofit run by former Kentucky Governor Ernie Fletcher, who was awarded, I think it was $10 million from the Health Resources and Services Administration to create something called a Rural Center of Excellence in Recovery Housing that has a nationwide scope. Part of their grant application involved creating some sort of digital system for identifying and accessing housing services across the US, specifically in rural areas, but really kind of nationally. That turned into this kind of really beautiful relationship with the KIPRIC team, because again, we had a lot of insights into like, what does it take to build a system that allows you to locate a treatment, provider or provider of services, and then also deliver accurate information on availability tied directly to the search criteria that an individual enters. So we received subaward from them to help build this technology. And now we're eventually ended up finding a company called GetHelp. It's a public benefit corporation based out of California. GetHelp, during our discovery of existing services, turned out to be a startup that was really kind of making headway in the state of California in recruiting recovery houses, but also things like homeless shelters. And they had an approach to this that was very person-centric. The owner of and CEO of GetHelp is himself an individual in recovery, and he's worked in all parts of the continuum of care, up to getting, becoming a licensed clinical psychiatrist. And he has experienced a lot of the pains that I think we all have with trying to access recovery housing, to find it, or to even understand it. So that's the other part there, that partnering with UK as an academic entity through funding that was federal, working with a private organization that's been developing this technology for a couple of years now. I think we're able to provide this kind of unique, this unique service to not only owners and operators of houses or residents of those houses, but also individuals who might be looking for housing or seeking to learn more about recovery and recovery housing. So you can go ahead and move on. Next slide. So what's come out of this so far is we have two major components to this system. We have a registry of houses, which is very similar to FindHelpNow. It's filling that gap in linkage to care. We're collecting a lot of information on each house and asking them to let us know more about their programs and services that they provide, and the people that they serve as well. And then of course, visitors can use either simple or advanced filters to narrow the search so that they can find something that actually meets their specific needs, which hopefully reduces the time it takes to find an appropriate place to stay. And then we also ask those providers to indicate when their beds become available as a form of kind of advertisement, because we wanted to make sure that houses that actually have availability show up first on the list. So that's kind of our little carrot to offer to them to participate. And then one of the other cool features that is not currently available on FindHelpNow, but I think we're probably going to be looking into this, is the frequent referrers can save and favorite searches and houses, so they can quickly get back to that list. Maybe there's a PO for a women's corrections institution in a state that's frequently referring out to different houses in that state. Well, they can go ahead and pre-fill a search criteria basically for their typical client, and then load that in every time they visit the site, so that they don't have to go back and rebuild that search criteria every time. They'll also be able to favorite houses. So if there are a few places that they really like, that they constantly work with, maybe that they even have contracts with, they can favorite those, and anytime they log in, they can quickly see the status of that house, and then refer out their client directly. I'll say also for the registry piece, similar to FindHelpNow, we don't collect PHI or PII in the registry component, but all of the technology that drives this system that can help us build is HIPAA compliant and lives on Amazon AWS servers as well. And they also have a signed BAA between the two organizations. Okay, next slide. So the second major component to this particular service is what we call the RMS. It's a recovery management system. And now this is something that I think is really innovative. I think we've all seen that behavioral healthcare has kind of been left behind in terms of technology over the years. So we wanted to kind of address this, and luckily KidHelp was already working on it. The idea is that we have this full-featured digital recovery house management technology. It's currently in beta testing with some select owners and operators across the US, specifically in rural areas, as that is our target area demographic for the HRSA grant through Fletcher Group. But we are also recruiting a few urban providers here and there. Some of the features that we have active at the moment are listed here on the screen. I just want to point out a few in particular. So a lot of people have responded well to digital workflows. That includes things like intake and discharge, and even doing a client case report, writing notes, that kind of thing. And then also we have digital forms. So we have some that are baked in, consents and agreements and that kind of thing. But then we can also digitize forms for operators so that they can have digital signatures and digital records of that information that they can report on. And then reports, those are huge for people. When I say operations reports here, it really covers the gamut. So that could be people in and out of your house over time. It could be things like history of housekeeping, maintenance, staff turnover if you're using staff management stuff. And then, of course, just reporting on the access to the various programs or membership of programs. But then we also have things like outcomes and assessments. And those are per client or per resident. So, this part of this is kind of comes from the research side. But in talking with owners and operators, we realized that they desperately wanted a way to better understand their residents' journey through recovery. Some of them have attempted to use certain assessment tools, but a lot of them aren't super familiar with academic research and behavioral health research in general, so they're not sure what to do there. So we have kind of a prescribed chunk of assessment tools that are all validated that we can enable the owners and operators, program managers, peer leaders to actually share with their residents to acquire that information over time. And then we keep a record of that. We can score it as well according to the scoring methods for those particular instruments. And then individuals who are providing care, coming up with their recovery plans, can kind of pull that up for each client and say like, hey, so, your BARC 10 showed a 43 at entry and you're up to a 60 now, you're making a lot of progress. And then they can, potentially tailor their recovery plan to that specific indicator. That piece is also going to be further developed and refined over time. We actually have a 100-house study that's currently underway to further validate those instruments and to get more feedback on that. I will say also, I'm going to point out digital certification badges. It's not clear here on this list, but what that really means is we have a way of creating an encrypted certification badge that can be used by state certification body, such as a NAR affiliate. NAR is the National Alliance for Recovery Residences, who do a lot of standards and certification of housing. So we actually partner directly with NAR at the national and state level in various states. And they have the ability to actually keep track of their certification through the system and say whether or not a house is certified. When they say that that house is certified, a badge appears on the house profile that that individual owner or operator can take and put on social media, on their own website, that kind of thing, that is digital and encrypted and embedded. So that means that we or Get Help or the NAR affiliate actually controls the information that's displayed, no matter where it shows up. So if that house becomes uncertified at any point, then that badge says expired or uncertified or whatever. And there's nothing the individual operator can do to change that. So one of that addresses some of the quality issues that have come up in recovery housing, where they might say they might have been certified once, or they might even lie and just take a picture of a certification badge and say that they are. So this kind of puts that into the hands of the NAR affiliate or Oxford House if they wanted to do that as well. We do actually work directly with National Oxford House too, in listing a lot of the houses. So I will say a couple of features that have been requested recently include a resident-facing dashboard or profile where residents can actually log in and access their info and do things like, complete their assessments or keep track of their meeting calendar. We also have meeting check-in tools that were requested that would be a part of that. So the case managers and the care providers can actually keep track of whether or not people are attending meetings. And we've also had financial management tools requested, things like just keeping track of rent and fees and payment, that kind of thing. And then a more dynamic report builder that will help houses, kind of build their own reports and play with their own data. So we're working on all of those components at the moment as well. One of the things that I wanted to mention here in regards to security, so we've got a lot of features, we've got a lot of data in this system. Like I said, the whole system is built on HIPAA compliant Amazon AWS infrastructure. We do use principle of least privilege as well as encryption in all of the resident data and access tokens, logins, that kind of thing. But to access the recovery management system, if anyone wants to partner with us and use this, we do ask them to sign a business associates agreement with Get Help, as well as a master service agreement. And these really just describe the roles, services, and responsibilities associated with using the software. And then, goes into some detail on the HIPAA protections, data storage and information security policies and protocols One of the core philosophies held by Get Help, and this is one of the things that I think attracted us to them, is that they really believe that individuals should own their own data and have the right to choose how it's used. So one of the things that we do here is we actually give residents the option to consent to sharing their information before it's entered into the system. We educate all of the providers that that's a requirement. We keep a record of that as well. And that basically just gives the resident the option to say, hey, you can use my data for research, or no, I want my data to just be used for my care, and that's it. Okay, next slide. All right, these are just a couple of pictures here at the end, just to show you what this looks like. I just gave you a list of information there. This does exist. On the left here, we've got kind of our digital bed board, which this all ties into the intake and discharge workflow system and the real-time bed availability indicator. So a house operator can do their intake using the intake processes, which are you get a peek at on the right side there, which is the client case or the profile. They'll work through that intake, collect all their background demographic information, health info, employment history, homeless history, criminal history or justice involvement. And then they can assign them to a specific bed in a specific program in a specific building in a specific room. So we do get very granular with this, but the idea behind that is we're able to provide reports on all of this information. So if their board is curious how a certain program is doing, well, they can, click of a button, grab a report to show that to their board. Or if they need to report on demographic information for all of their, their current residents and alumni, to maybe apply for grant funding or to report to a funder in their state, they can do that as well. The information there also can, of course, be used to better understand and improve their services and programs. Okay, next slide, please. All right, here, so this is just an example of two of I think these are the cooler features personally. So on the left, we've got our outcomes assessment tools with the history there. And as you can see, we have things like continued use or relapse potential, patient health questionnaires. We have an ACEs survey or adverse childhood experiences, and of course, brief assessment of recovery capital. We really tried to be broad with those, but informative enough so that they could potentially inform care. The next step with that, by the way, is to start to provide suggestions on, what to do if a score equals X, Y, or Z. So that if we have someone who may be less sophisticated running a house with like 8 people in it, but they still want to be able to kind of assess their residents and like better understand them and figure out how to help them, we want to be able to give them kind of an academically informed perspective on the data that they're looking at. And then on the right side, it's just a really cool full-featured work order system. This ties into, the beds, the rooms, the properties, the locations, all back to the house. And then also the specific people in there. So we talk about principle of least privilege. You could have someone who's just a maintenance worker who has access, gets notifications from this system, can log in and manage work orders and things like that. Or if you're working with an outside party, they could log a work order, generate an invoice, then attach that to the specific work order. I show the work order thing to everyone. It may not be super relevant to you all, but I think this is really cool because what we've learned over time is that a lot of houses really struggle with keeping track, especially as they grow too quickly, keeping track of, things like checking the fire extinguishers, AEDs, the smoke alarms, changing mattresses and beds out, that kind of thing. So we wanted to make sure that everyone has access to something where they can not only improve the quality of services and programs, but also maintain the integrity and quality of the house itself and the business to support the operations of that business. And then oftentimes that type of information is requested by funders if they're a public funder. So we wanted to make sure we gave that information back to the house as well. All right, I think that covers it. I know we dipped into more features and things like that, but I am always really excited to describe to everyone what we're doing at the state and national level for recovery housing as well. So yeah, any questions? Catherine, if you see any questions pop up in chat, just read them out for me. I'm on my tablet, so it's kind of hard to see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to unmute yourself or type in the chat box if you have any questions.
I say if any of you are interested in maybe connecting us to some recovery housing providers in your area that might be interested in this, we're happy to have that conversation as well. We're funded to basically offer this for free to most providers.
Tyler, I'll ask a question just because sometimes I hear this. So going back to FindHelpNow, while we don't collect any personally identifiable information, we do kind of gather information on what people are searching for. So can you talk a little bit about how we collect that data in a way that it's doesn't, you can't trace it back to an individual person, basically?
Yeah, so I mean, we use Google Analytics primarily for that, and I recommend that to anyone. If you're setting up a service like this, definitely make sure you have a plan to leverage Google Analytics and plan for that early. And the reason for that is you can generate labels that you can attach to various components of the site that allow you to track kind of what's happening. So what we do is we collect information on the individual, which is really just their city and state and things like that. Google, through all of their various products and cookies, keep track of that individual, and maybe they know if they're male or female, for example, or what their interests are, that kind of thing. But what we do with the labeling system is we're able to attach that kind of basic demographic info that Google collects on an individual to specific actions on the site. So that would be like search filters, clicks on resources, clicks on particular facilities, that kind of thing. So we're able to correlate an individual's location and maybe sex or gender, and a couple of other little factors about that individual to the types of things they're searching for, which is really kind of high level. It's really standard. Pretty much everyone's collecting that type of information. But we don't, like if they entered their specific street address, for example, we would never know what that was because we don't log it. They're able to do that, but it's not stored anywhere. And so that just helps facilitate the search. But it's not something that, is critical to us because city is close enough. If we understand more or less where someone's coming from and what they're searching for by tying that to the filters, then we can make some, I think better judgments of the types of services that are needed or wanted in an area.
Any other questions, comments? All right, so thank you all for attending today. I am going to drop into the chat box a link to a quick survey. It should take you less than 5 minutes to complete it. Just if you would take a couple minutes and give us some feedback on today's webinar, as well as provide any additional information, questions, things you want to hear about for upcoming webinars. We do these quarterly, and we always want to hear from you all what is most helpful for you. And so I also put in the contact information for myself and for Tyler, and we are more than happy to try to answer any questions that you have about linkage to care programs, whether that be treatment facilities or recovery housing. And if we don't know the answers, we hopefully could find someone who could find the answers. We're also always helpful or always open to just having a meeting with you all if you'll have questions, and we can just schedule a 30-minute, 45-minute meeting to try to answer any questions or just provide additional information. So thank you all again, and hopefully we'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.